This video, we begin our look at the Mexican National Unit, and this first part starts with the closing of the missions. And so this is actually still Texas is a part of Spain, and before the Mexican independence movements really get going, but it is kind of the move towards that. It's the beginnings, what we might call the road to revolution, in a sense. So today, we're going to look, like I said, at the closing of the missions. And to understand that, one of the things we need to recognize and look at is the French and Indian War. So this map shows land holdings by European powers in North America um, prior to the French and Indian War. So you can see Great Britain in the 13 colonies here. You can see France in this territory here, and you can see Spain here and in Florida. And so these are the major land holdings that are claimed. Now, various levels of actual holding on to this land is possible. You know, the French had fewer settlers than the English did. So the English certainly had a stronger hold of the 13 colonies than the French did of much of this territory. Based on just numbers. Spain had a very strong hold on much of Mexico, clearly by this time, but less so of the northern frontier, which was why the missions and presidios were in that system were developed. And certainly because, in a large part, because of France. And so you can see this territory here, this is the area that would certainly be debated between Spain and France as to who really controlled it. And so that's kind of the basic territories prior to the French and Indian War. Well, the French and Indian War is a war fought between Great Britain and their Indian allies and France and their Indian allies. And France had more allies with the Indians than Great Britain did. And so it's called the French and Indian War here in North America. It's part of a greater war, world war, really known as the 7 Years' War. And so which was, in a sense, a worldwide war. War was being fought on many different continents. Now, we're not getting into the whole war itself, but what's essential for us is to see the difference in the two maps and the territory that is a result, who owns the territory as a result of this war. So the French Indian War is a major loss for France. It's a major defeat for France because this territory, you can see much of this territory that was once France is now divided between Great Britain, basically east of the Mississippi River, and now Spain west of the Mississippi River. And so that French threat that was along here in the Texas boundaries is no longer, the eastern Texas boundaries are no longer a threat. This is now the new Spanish territory has been added, and so France is not nearly as big a threat. And so with that threat gone, there's this idea, well, these missions and these presidios are fairly expensive for us to maintain. Are these really needed? That begins to be questioned at this time. And so basically shortly after the end of this war, the Marques de Rubi, there should be an S at the end of that, the Marques de Rubi is sent on an inspection. He's appointed the frontier inspector, and he is commissioned to remedy economic abuses and other matters. Basically, kind of figure out what's the best plan, come up with a plan for our missions and presidios on the frontier. See what's going on here. And so he does. He leaves Mexico City and he heads up, and you can see this route that he takes. He heads all the way up to Santa Fe, stopping at various points along the way and inspecting different missions and presidios. He heads out west through New Mexico and then back down south and all the way up back into Texas, into present-day San Saba, and then into San Antonio. Present-day San Antonio, heads to East Texas or Western Louisiana even, and inspects the missions there, and comes on back through and returns, travels over 7,000 miles. It says there 7,600 miles, returns in February of 1768. So it's a 2-year long journey that he takes to inspect kind of the frontier of New Spain in the New World. And he comes back and he writes his recommendations. He suggests basically a reorganization with 15 presidios from the Gulf of California, right here, all the way across, coming here to, like, this is where the Guadalupe River is, right around this area, just goes north of San Antonio, down here to present day, like Victoria. And so he basically says they need every 100 miles, every 200 miles or so, I think every 100 miles, there should be a presidio across this territory. That's his recommendation. The ones that are north of that, or that span, he says, we need to keep Santa Fe, we should keep San Antonio. The rest of the Texas missions, especially these East Texas missions, they're just in such disrepair, they're so poorly managed, we need to abandon those. And he suggests basically a war of extinction against the Lipan Apaches. And so the Lipan Apaches are in this region of Texas. They're a powerful. They're basically fairly powerful group at various times throughout Texas history. And so he suggests actually trying to wipe them out. So he gives his report basically. Probably returns in 1768. Shortly after that, has a report to deliver to the viceroy and the king. But it's not for about 4 years until new regulations come out in September of 1772. And these new regulations basically abandon all missions and presidios in Texas, but San Antonio and La Bahia, current Goliad, and then establish positive relations with the northern nations, the northern Native American nations, at the expense of the Apaches. And so they take a lot of the Marques de Rubi's recommendations and go with those. So that is kind of the end of this mission and presidio system in Texas and throughout much of the Southwest, of this part of the Southwest. We see an abandoning of many of these missions, with just a few remaining intact. So that's kind of where we see the closing of the missions, and is the reason for that.